So thank you guys so much. This is a special addition to our normal Q&As. This is a little special event we're doing for you. We have with us Dr. Benny Maniscalco, who's been in the private practice of medicine, specializing in cardiovascular disease since 1976. And he is an innovator and educator on cardiovascular medicine. He served in the American College of Cardiology at the local, state, and national level in leadership roles which have directly influenced healthcare policy. He's the graduate of Duke University School of Medicine and has obtained his postgraduate training in internal medicine and cardiovascular disease at Emory University Allied Hospitals. And after leaving a faculty position at the University of South Florida School of Medicine, he founded the St. Joseph's Heart Institute in Tampa, Florida. So he got introduced to Protandim, which is an amazing supplement you guys have learned about in our course several years ago. And he's actually been using it, I think you can fill us in on the details, maybe I think 3 years. And now you have thousands of patients on that supplement. And so I really am interested for you guys to hear his direct experience with what he's seen clinically in his practice. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Benny.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Becky. I appreciate it. I'm delighted to be with all of you tonight, and feel like I'm partially at home since I spent so many years in Atlanta. And had a home in Stone Mountain, raised a couple of children there, and so it's good memories. Let me take you on a little journey before I tell you about my patients. As you heard, I went to Duke University Medical School. And in my very first week, I heard a lecture by a biochemist who was later to be a Nobel laureate. And he made the remarkable statement that I, 50 years later, am able to take advantage of. And that is, as he was describing to us the way in which our cells make energy, which is called ATP, and then turn that energy to drive all the biologic processes in our body, we sat there sort of dumbfounded by the beautiful lecture he gave. And then he made the statement, which I want you to recall. He said, we know how to make the energy. We just haven't quite figured out yet how we deal with the side products of that process of making the energy. So a few years later, there's a man who goes to train with this gentleman whose name was Dr. Philip Handler. And the man who trained with him was Dr. Joel McCord, who by now you probably have heard of. Dr. McCord is a preeminent research scientist, cell biologist, and the discoverer of the most potent antioxidant in our body, superoxide dismutase. He trained with Dr. Handler, and he answered the question, how do we deal with the side products? So let me see if I can give you a little analogy. If you were driving your car, you don't think of it, but you're burning gas, and as you burn gas, you get energy. But that energy production also is associated with the production of things you don't like, namely carbon monoxide and other fuel petroleum additives that can be very toxic to your body and mind. So what really happens is the cell has its own muffler, if you will, its own catalytic converter, and they're called antioxidants. And those antioxidants are named catalase, superoxide dismutase, glutathione, and they are the most potent antioxidants that anyone can take. In fact, you don't have to take them, your body makes them. So the question becomes, why do we make those antioxidants? We make them because the very production of energy which sustains our life, that is the metabolism of oxygen, leads to the potential for severe damage to our cells with the production of free radicals. And those free radicals need to be immediately neutralized, because if they're not neutralized, they're going to attach any place they can. And when they do, they're going to cause injury to our cells. You know all about this. You read it in the press all the time. Eat mulberries, eat chocolate, eat antioxidants. But you never stop to think, what's our body doing about the antioxidants? This is the great discovery that we're about to discuss in more detail. How the body produces antioxidants and how we are now able to influence the body's production of antioxidants so that we can neutralize those free radicals. And then you should ask yourself the question, well, why do we want to neutralize the free radicals? Well, I gave you the answer, because if you don't, they attach any place they can and they cause damage. And anytime the body has an injury from a free radical or from any injury, it responds with a defense mechanism that you all have heard of in the press and everyday journals that you read, called inflammation. So inflammation is the body's response uniformly to any injury of any kind to wall off and repair the damage potentially done by the free radical attachment. And here's the key. Inflammation always ends up in a scar. If it's a surgeon's knife, you get a scar. You don't think of it as inflammation. You think of it as a healing wound, but it's inflammation that heals that wound. If you inhale a toxic chemical, it's inflammation that causes the healing and leaves the scar behind. This is also very important because when you make a scar, it is there forever. And that, at the cellular level, is the definition of aging. So if scars are causing aging, then everything we can do to prevent those scars from forming is going to be helpful to us and retard aging. So Dr. McCord sets out and says, well, we use oxygen. There must be something in our bodies, in our cells, that must relate to the neutralization of those free radicals. And then he said, well, you know what? Most of the oxygen in the atmosphere comes from our friends, the plants. And the plant life produces most of our oxygen. So he goes there and he finds that in plants, you have this substance which is powerful called superoxide dismutase. And that is the most powerful, uniformly found antioxidant in all of our life. So I want you to think about this. You didn't evolve as a human being in and of yourself. You evolved with all the plant life and all the animal life on the planet. So you live in a biosphere, and we feed off of one another and are dependent in many ways on one another for our survival, for our mutual survival. Plants produce oxygen. We use the oxygen. We produce carbon dioxide. Plants use the carbon dioxide and make their own source of energy. So as you look at that kind of relationship, you can understand the excitement that Dr. McCord and his colleagues must have felt when they found this powerful antioxidant. Now he said, well, if that's the case, why is it that plants age, animals age, people age, if we've got this powerful antioxidant? So there's the rub. The rub is you keep breathing. The rub is you keep building up free radicals. The rub is you have to do that in order to survive. And then you're exposed to the atmosphere where you have other toxins, where you have other chemicals, to the food substances that you put in your body that have chemicals. So all of these things lead to the production of more free radicals. And as you go on through life, and you turn around age 30 and 35 and say, wait a minute, where did this line come from? How come my eyes, what happened here? Well, you're replacing normal tissue with scar. You are aging. So you replace the injury with scar. A scar replaces a cell. Cells replace an organ. And there is the definition of disease. So now I've taken you through all of medicine. You're now qualified physicians. You have learned that we have to make energy and we must depend on oxygen, but we know that that dependency also leads to potential illness and disease and certainly aging. So McCord and his colleagues and many other scientists around the world then started looking at, okay, well, if that's the case, we need to think about what regulates the production of antioxidants and why at a certain point in our life we're unable to neutralize those free radicals as well as when we were younger. And the truth is that we have a substance in our cell, a molecule called NRF2, and it's got a very big, long name. It's worse than any of the Italian words I can think of. They're really long. And it is part of this whole system of communication chemically at the cellular level. When that molecule is anchored in the cell and is unable to communicate with the nucleus, the command center, then we are unable to have lots and lots of antioxidants being produced. But the minute we can stimulate NRF2 to carry out its normal function, which is to send a message to the nucleus, boss, we got too many free radicals, the Mongols are tearing down the castle wall, we got to make many, many, many more antioxidants. You need to reverse the machinery in our cell. And out comes the message from the nucleus with lots of enzymes and lots of chemicals and commands that turns on the production of the antioxidants. So here's what I've told you. We depend on oxygen. Oxygen also leads to our illnesses if we don't neutralize the byproducts. And since we started out at a deficit because Mama gave us some of hers, that is her free radicals, we're never going to be at zero, but we can stop the rapid progression of free radical damage by increasing our ability to neutralize them by making more and more antioxidants. That's the discovery of my medical career and perhaps the most important discovery in all of medicine for many, many years. The discovery at the cellular level, how we protect ourselves from injury and how we can prevent and delay aging and disease. That is incredible. Now, when we talk about NRF2, we're talking about that molecule that tells the nucleus we need to make more antioxidants. But by the way, I know all of you probably drive a car and you take it in every so often and get it checked. But I bet you don't take your mitochondria in to get them checked. What are the mitochondria? The mitochondria are the cellular mechanisms in which you make the energy ATP. And by golly, they wear out just like any other thing. And so there is an NRF1, and that NRF1 can stimulate the nucleus to send out appropriate chemical information to repair our mitochondria and produce more mitochondria, leading to our ability to increase our energy production. That leads to more NRF2 necessity because we make more free radicals. So we got this cycle, and there's the life cycle of the cell, and that's what we need to understand. So some people said, well, geez, if this is going on, perhaps we can find a way to retard aging, to prevent chronic diseases from happening too early in life. And maybe we need to learn how to intervene. As a cardiologist, intervention is a very big thing in my career. We intervene by doing bypass surgery and we do angioplasties and stents, but nothing that I've ever done is as powerful as delivering an intervention that will stimulate NRF2 to increase the production of antioxidants. So here's what happened to me. I'm sitting in my office, minding my own business, and some guy comes in and says, I just found the greatest discovery in all of medicine. And I said, get thee out of here, Satan. I don't want to hear another word. Benny, please, you're my friend. You got to help me. You got to at least look at the science. I said, okay, I owe it to you. I'll look at the science. I spent about 3 months studying the science because candidly, I had not paid much attention to cellular biology because I was so busy day and night in the hospital. Thanks to Emory University teaching me all that stuff, cracking plaques and sending people to surgery and all that good stuff. All very important stuff. When I read that science, it was transformational because I realized that the very disease I've been working with for 35, 40 years could now be approached in a totally different way. We could approach it in a preventative way. We could approach it in a retardation way. We could actually affect the cellular metabolism and the cellular mechanisms and the chemical reactions that led to disease and aging. That whole field has exploded now. That's called nutrigenomics, where we have learned that our friends in the plant kingdom have a very, very important role in our life. You know that. I know that. Your grandmother told you to eat carrots, told you to eat blueberries. She didn't know why, but she told you they were good for you. You just didn't believe her, neither did I. And now the scientists have absolutely shown us why. Because they stimulate NRF2. And therefore, we increase the production of antioxidants. So now, imagine, I'm a little bit from Missouri, even though I'm from Tampa, Florida. So I said, well, okay, I want to believe this because it's all reputable science. It's all terrific. Dr. McCord got this incredible, prestigious chemical award, the equal of which was to Madame Curie and other great scientists of history that you know of. And so I took some patients, 100 to be exact, and I took all their measurements of inflammation because after all, inflammation was the result of free radicals, right? And as I looked at all of those things, I measured them, and then I put them on this product that Dr. McCord put together. And that product is 5 food substances, and he named it Protandim. And those 5 food substances taken in the specific combination that he devised caused the production of antioxidants at 1,000,000 to 1. You would have to take the entire house I live in full of mulberries to replicate the kind of antioxidant production that NRF2 does when you give it Protandim. So those 100 patients, 60 days later, had a measurement of their inflammatory markers again after being on Protandim. They all returned to normal.
Wow.
So then I went, okay, now I'm going to give you the real test. Benny Maniscalco has a very terrible inflammatory problem. Let's see what happens. Well, I want to tell you this because it's important if you're going to be involved with this synthesizer, activator of NRF2. You can, when you give this, cause such a profound chemical reaction in your body to neutralize all the free radicals that may be there that you could actually get sick. You can have some nausea and some diarrhea and so forth, and here I am, I'm the living proof. I started and stopped 3 times, but I finally put on my big boy pants and said, okay, because I really did have a significant problem. All my markers of inflammation have returned towards normal. Now, I had such a profound abnormality that I'm not quite at normal yet, but I've reduced my inflammatory markers by about 90%. I now have about 3,500 patients on Protandim. And I recommend Protandim in the same breath that I recommend blood pressure medicine or weight loss or eating properly or medicines for diabetes or cholesterol. And I use tests to evaluate their inflammatory status and show them the result of taking Protandim thereafter. Now, of course, I have a couple of smarty pants patients in my practice. So I said, well, hell, there are 5 food substances. I'll just go buy all 5 of them. They did. They went off the Protandim, came back, and all their markers of inflammation were up again. So I said, you stopped the Protandim. They said, oh, no, I'm taking all 5 of those things. I said, no, you can't do that. You have to take them all in this specific patented formulation that alone has been proven after 5,000 combinations that Dr. McCord tried to make this thing work properly. Let me give you a couple of other pieces of information clinically, which I think are profound. One is there are a couple of medications on the market that are very powerful activators of NRF2. And they specifically are used today in the treatment of multiple sclerosis and trying to prevent relapses. In the paper that the scientists and the pharmaceutical firm approved, the paper that was written regarding that medication, there is a graph showing the effect on NRF2 by the drug, by two other substances, and by Protandim. And the point blank statement written in there in bold, the natural product Protandim containing 5 food substances is twice as powerful as our product. Now imagine, that's the first time in my 50-year career that pharma would say this natural thing is greater than my product. By the way, my product only cost about $60,000 a year for you to take, and Protandim's only about $40 a month. So imagine, when I gave it to a couple of patients who I knew had multiple sclerosis, they were ecstatic. They dropped the other drug, they got them Protandim, and they're doing beautifully. That's not all. One other thing. If you followed my little soliloquy here, you learned that scar is a definition of aging. So if we can prevent scar, we ought to prevent aging. Another way of doing that particular statement is to back it up and say, well, if we're preventing aging, we really are extending life, aren't we? That was the question asked by the National Institutes of Health, the aging division. And they took a number of products to date that they tried to find out whether life could be extended with certain products. Amongst them, metformin, which you've heard about for diabetes, 2 or 3 other things which I won't get into, and Protandim. Guess what? Protandim extended the life of the laboratory animal, the first time in the history of medicine that it's been shown that a nutraceutical can extend life. So what you're dealing with when you start looking at the products that LifeVantage, the company that produces Protandim, is doing, they're producing products that are based in pure, powerful science at cellular mechanisms that are controlled by nutrigenomics, the application of food substances to activate our normal cellular processes to function at an optimal level. So I can tell you that I take Protandim. I've been on it for 3 years. My 3,500 patients take Protandim. They're all doing better. I can tell you that it is a powerful, powerful natural substance because it activates our normal mechanisms of action in our body. So I wanted to share all that with you, and Becky is kind enough to ask me to do that. I hear you.
Okay. I would love to hear a little bit more from you about when you go to put somebody on that supplement. What do you say to them, and how do you explain that this is something they're going to need to stay on for the rest of their life? Because a lot of our people that we recommend this product to, they feel like if they don't feel the benefit, they think that they can just stop. And
yeah, I think that's a very valuable question to be answered, and let me tell you why. If you came in my office and you said, gee, I want to do preventative cardiology, with what's been accomplished by mass advertising and the pharmaceutical industry about cholesterol, you would demand that you have a cholesterol test. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't feel when cholesterol changes in your body. So I say to them, look, you have very abnormal cholesterol metabolism. It's a contributor to inflammation, and inflammation causes disease. Now, in the same token, we cause disease ourselves simply by being alive because we breathe oxygen. And so if you're breathing oxygen, you are always going to be producing free radicals or substances that are going to injure your cells. So we now know that a natural substance can be taken and profoundly influence the effect on your body by neutralizing those free radicals and taking the possibility of aging and disease to a different level. In other words, reducing it enormously. Now look, you may not feel anything Or you might, because if you have a lot of free radicals, you may just get a little detoxification going on. You may get a little nausea, a little diarrhea, but it'll go away once we neutralize and take you back to the lowest level. Because then I'll measure your blood again, and you'll see the effect of this drug. You will see your markers of inflammation drop. You will see less medication needed for blood pressure. You will see less medication needed for cholesterol. You will see less medication needed for diabetes, and you will feel better because you will be detoxing and you will be preventing a lot of free radical accumulation. And then I send them to my front desk and say, sign them up for Protandim. And that's how I do it.
I'll unmute people on the phone. So if you guys want to ask any questions.
Yeah, Trudy wants to know how long does it take before you get an effect. Trudy, it's variable in each patient in terms of getting down towards normal. But if you look at starting someone on day one and you recheck their inflammatory levels 60 to 90 days later, you will definitely see the effect going on.
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything tonight. It's been just a pleasure to have you here, and I know our students have appreciated everything that you've shared and given them a glimpse of how profound this supplement really is.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I wish you all lots of success, and please recommend it to your patients. It's very good for them. I believe everyone in the world should be on Protandim.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.